HR looked me straight in the eye and said, "You don't deserve a promotion because you're a woman." I swear I heard the fluorescent lights buzzing louder after that. My name is Claire Morgan. I'm 32, live in Denver, Colorado, and I worked, in a 5-person marketing team at a mid-sized consumer brand you'd absolutely recognize in any Target aisle. That sentence? It didn't come from some old-school warehouse supervisor who never learned what HR does. It came from HR, in a conference room with my 50-year-old misogynist boss sitting right there, smirking behind his coffee cup like he'd already won. They thought it was just another meeting. They had no idea I was about to drag the Department of Labor straight into our nicely decorated open office, past the mason jar succulents and the good vibes only neon sign. Because if there's one thing you should never underestimate, it's a tired, overworked, underpaid oldest daughter with receipts. One, the day HR said the quiet part out loud. The room smelled like burnt coffee and dry erase markers. We were in Conference Room Aspen, because of course the rooms were named after Colorado ski towns. Fake culture and an overworked Keurig. Welcome to corporate America. I sat on one side of the table with my laptop, a spiral notebook with color-coded tabs, and a black Pilot G2 pen. Across from me, Gary Thompson, my boss, marketing director, 50, salt and pepper hair, still wore bootcut jeans with a blazer like it was 2007. Melissa from HR, mid-40s, cardigan queen, permanent, I'd rather be anywhere else energy. My annual performance review. This was supposed to be the conversation where we finally talked about my promotion to marketing manager. For the last 2 years, Gary had been dangling it like a carrot. Just ship this campaign first. We'll revisit after Q4. Let's see how you handle more responsibility. I'd handled everything. Our 5-person marketing team had run 4 national social campaigns, a full rebrand, and more last minute. Can you design this flyer for a trade show tomorrow? Emergencies than I could count. And I was the one pulling late nights on Canva and Google Slides, while Gary was at home posting pictures of his big green egg grill on Facebook. Melissa opened my file, clicked a few times, and smiled a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Okay, Claire," she said. "Let's talk about your year." Gary didn't even look up from his iPhone. I sat up straighter. Sure, I actually pulled together a summary of my campaigns. ROI, engagement, the lift we saw with the fall launch. Gary cut me off with a little chuckle. "Always so prepared, Claire." I pretended that was a compliment. Melissa skimmed the form. "So overall, your rating is meets expectations." My heart thumped. Meets expectations? "I thought we'd talked about exceeds," I said carefully. "I led the fall campaign. We beat projections by 30% and," Gary shrugged, "everyone worked hard. It was a team effort." I looked at him. "I was the one here until 10 p.m. the night before launch. You literally slacked me." "Great work. You saved our A when..." Melissa cleared her throat. "Let's stay professional," she said, glancing nervously at Gary like he was the fragile one here. I forced a breath. "Okay. I'd like to understand what I'm missing then. Last year you," I looked at Gary, "said if I successfully ran point on a major launch, owned the strategy, and mentored the junior on our team, we'd be ready to talk about marketing manager." Gary leaned back in his chair, laced his fingers behind his head. "Yeah, and you did fine," he said. "But a manager, that's a big jump. You're still pretty young." I laughed, a short disbelieving sound. "Gary, I'm 32. He waved a hand. "Early 30s, same thing." I turned to Melissa. "I've been in this role for 5 years. I've taken on most of the manager responsibilities without the title, running stand-ups, presenting to leadership, handling vendors." Melissa gave me that HR expression I hate, sympathetic but empty. "Claire," she said, "we have to look at the big picture." I'd been waiting for this, the goalposts, the not yet, the vague nonsense. "What exactly is the big picture?" I asked. Because from where I'm sitting, I'm already doing the work. Gary glanced at Melissa, then at me. "We appreciate your passion," he said. "You're a hard worker, super organized, great at execution. But manager roles are about presence, gravitas, leadership." I stared at him. I present our campaign decks to the VP every quarter. He smiled. Yeah, but when they ask the hard questions, you look at me. No, I looked at him because he talked over me if I dared answer. I could feel my face getting hot. I'm ready for more. I want to talk about a path to manager, timeline, expectations, what else you need to see. That's when Melissa did it. She put her hands flat on the table, tilted her head, and said in that smooth, rehearsed HR voice, Claire, you don't deserve a promotion because you're a woman at this stage of your life. Silence. I thought I'd misheard her. I'm sorry, I said slowly. Because I'm a what? She sighed like I was being dramatic. Look, we have to be realistic. You're in your early 30s. You're engaged. Gary mentioned your wedding is next summer. And statistically, this is the time women start thinking about babies, stepping back, prioritizing home. She said home like it tasted bad in her mouth. Gary was suddenly very interested in his phone. Melissa went on, matter of fact. From a business standpoint, it doesn't make sense to invest in a promotion if you might go on maternity leave within a year. We need stability in leadership roles. Men your age are more reliable in that sense. I felt like someone had dropped a bowling ball into my chest. Just to be clear, I said, my voice a little shaky, you're saying I don't deserve a promotion because I'm a woman and you assume I'll get pregnant? Melissa leaned back, annoyed. Don't twist my words, Claire. I'm saying we have to protect the company's interests. You're a woman at this age, with certain priorities. Her eyes flicked to my engagement ring. I haven't said anything about kids, I replied, now more angry than hurt. We're talking about my performance, my results, my workload. Gary finally chimed in. Let's not make this emotional, he said. We love having you on the team. You're like the glue, Claire. Every team needs a solid support person. Support person, not leader, not manager, support. I sat there, listening to my own pulse in my ears. In that moment, I realized two things. One, they were never going to promote me. Two, they had just handed me something more powerful than any title. They'd handed me a perfect, clean textbook sentence of illegal discrimination from HR in front of a witness against a woman who takes way too many notes. I looked at Melissa, then at Gary, and smiled in a way that made both of them shift in their seats. Okay, I said quietly. Thank you for being honest. They thought I meant it. They had no idea what those 10 words had just cost them. Two, how I ended up in that room. To understand why I didn't just walk out and never look back, you need to know who I am when I'm not Claire from marketing. I'm the oldest daughter in a working-class family from Aurora, Illinois, outside Chicago. My dad, Jim Morgan, worked the night shift at a FedEx warehouse for 22 years. My mom, Ellen, ran a home daycare when we were little and then did the front desk at a dentist's office once we were older. We grew up on Jewel Osco groceries, hand-me-down Old Navy jeans, Friday night pizza from Domino's when the check cleared. My parents taught me three things. 1, show up on time. 2, don't waste food. 3, health insurance is a blessing and a hostage situation. We didn't have college counselors telling us about fit and campus culture. We had me on a sticky Dell laptop at the kitchen table, Googling cheapest marketing programs Midwest, while my siblings argued over the remote. I went to University of Illinois at Chicago, lived in a cramped dorm, and worked part-time at Target in the apparel section. I learned how to fold a graphic tee in 3 seconds and how to survive on black coffee and string cheese. I graduated with $38,000 in student loans and a marketing degree that sounded more glamorous than it paid. My first job out of college was at a tiny agency making $38K a year, sharing a cubicle, getting paid in free LaCroix, and exposure. Exposure doesn't pay Navient. So when I landed the job at Inside Out Foods, a better-for-you snack company in Denver with a salary that finally started with a 6 and health insurance that covered more than ibuprofen, I thought I'd made it. We celebrated with Costco sheet cake. My dad hugged me so hard I couldn't breathe. Corporate America, huh? He said. You're gonna have your own office one day, with a nameplate and everything. He had no idea that 6 years later, I'd be sitting in a glass box being told I didn't deserve a promotion because I might get pregnant. But 3, the marketing team from hell. Our marketing team at Inside Out was small. 5 people responsible for everything from TikTok videos to trade show banners. Gary, the marketing director, my boss. 50, divorced, thinks of himself as a Mad Men guy. Loves to tell stories about the golden age of advertising, while we remind him it's not okay to call interns sweetheart. Me, the senior marketing specialist, the glue, the project tracker, the one who knows which version of which logo we're allowed to use. Brad, brand manager, 34, frat boy energy, shows up at 9:45 with a cold brew and leaves at 4:30 for softball league. Somehow always gets credit for my ideas. Jess, social media coordinator, 26, Gen Z, lives on TikTok, burns out every 3 months. Nina, marketing analyst, 29, quiet data queen, always in a Patagonia fleece no matter the weather. On paper, we were a collaborative, fast-moving team. In reality, it was Gary sitting in his corner office while we put out fires. Gary's management style was a beautiful mix of laziness and ego. He'd ignore emails all week, then ping us on Slack at 5:12 p.m. on Friday. Need updated deck for Monday, 8 a.m. Votre new numbers. That's. He'd take my bullet point strategy docs, copy them into a PowerPoint, add the word synergy, and present it to the VP like he'd stayed up all night crafting it. He'd refer to me as the girl on my team in meetings with vendors. The girl on my team. I had a degree and 6 years of experience, but sure, Gary, go off. Brad, for his part, treated the office like his frat house never ended. He'd lean over my desk, breath smelling like the everything bagel he had every morning. Hey, Claire, can you just throw together a quick mock for the new boxes? Hey, Claire, could you make sure the invites go out? Hey, Claire, can you remind me what the main message of the fall campaign is? You know, basic tasks for the brand manager, handled by me. When I'd push back, he'd laugh. You're so good at the details. My brain just doesn't work like that. Gary loved Brad. Brad's a natural leader. He'd say, guys on sales love him. He's got that charisma. Translated, Brad plays golf with the VP and posts craft beer reviews on Instagram. Whenever we had a big presentation to leadership, here's how it went. I'd build the deck, research, copy, layout, the whole thing. Nina would pull the data, create charts, and send them to me. Jess would mock up social teaser posts. Gary would stroll in the conference room 5 minutes before, flip through the slides for the first time, and say, looks good, team. Then, in the meeting, we wanted to try something new, Gary would say. Brad had a great idea for this campaign structure. Brad's concept here is really pushing the brand forward. I'd sit there while Brad nodded like he'd personally invented marketing. The first time it happened, I told myself it was an oversight. The third time, I realized it was a pattern. The 10th time, I started keeping notes, dates, meetings, who said what, who took credit, who did the work, oldest daughter habit. When no one believes you, you learn to carry proof. 4. The slow burn of disrespect. It wasn't one big thing with Gary. It was 1,000 little cuts. Like the time we were in a brainstorming meeting and I suggested we partner with fitness influencers on Instagram who actually use our products in their meal prep videos. Gary looked bored. I don't know, Claire. Influencers feel so millennial, Jess snorted. You know millennials are in their 30s now, right? 2 weeks later, Brad came in. Hey, I was thinking, he said in the Monday stand-up, what if we did influencer partnerships with, like, fit moms on Insta? That'd be huge. Gary snapped his fingers. Now that's an idea. See, this is why I say Brad's a big picture thinker. I looked at Jess. She looked at me. We didn't even have the energy to roll our eyes. Or the time Gary walked past my desk at 6:45 p.m. while I was fixing a last-minute vendor issue. Still here? He chuckled. That's dedication. Your future kids are gonna miss you if you keep this up? I forced a smile. No kids, remember? We talked about that. He waved me off. Every woman says that in her 30s. Biological clock is no joke. Anyway, shoot me the final proof. I'll review it from my couch. Then there was the boys' lunch. Every Thursday, Gary and Brad would disappear for an hour and a half around noon. Grabbing a bite, Brad would announce, grabbing his Patagonia jacket. I'd watch them leave through the glass doors, laughing like life was a LinkedIn commercial. One day, Jess whispered, you know they're not just grabbing a burger, right? They go to that steak place on 17th with the VP. It's basically the Who's Getting Promoted Club. When I asked Gary once if I could join, just casually, he laughed. It's kind of a guy's thing, he said. We talk sports? You'd be bored. Don't worry, you shine in other ways. You don't watch sports? I asked. He shrugged. I just don't want you to feel uncomfortable. I grew up watching the Bears with my dad every Sunday. But sure, Gary, protect me from your sacred NFL conversations. At home, my fiancé Ethan would listen to my stories while we ate Trader Joe's orange chicken on the couch. You should say something, he'd mutter, eyes flicking from me to the TV. This isn't okay. To who? I'd snap. Gary's buddy-buddy with the VP. HR is HR. They exist to protect the company, not me. He'd reach for my hand. You can't let them walk all over you forever. Claire. I just need the promotion, I'd say. Manager title, a raise. Then if it's still like this, maybe I'll look elsewhere. But I need that bump first. I have loans, remember? Because underneath all the righteous anger was something uglier. Fear. Fear of losing my health insurance. Fear of starting over. Fear of explaining to my parents that their corporate daughter got fired for making trouble. So I stayed. I smiled. I worked late. I trained new hires. I fixed every crisis. And I told myself that hard work pays off. Until HR told me it doesn't. Not for women like me. 5. The breaking point. After Melissa's sentence, you don't deserve a promotion because you're a woman, the rest of the meeting blurred. I remember her saying something about reassessing in a year and staying focused on your current role. I remember Gary chiming in with, think of this as an opportunity to grow without the pressure of a new title. I nodded, wrote down a few fake notes to look cooperative, and left. My hands shook as I walked back through the open plan office, past the neon do what you love sign, and the snack wall filled with our own products. I sat at my desk and stared at my keyboard. Jess slacked me. How'd it go? My fingers hovered over the keys. Then I wrote, she literally said, I don't deserve a promotion, BC, I'm a woman. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, reappeared. Wait, what, like, actually? In those words? Yes, in front of Gary. Girl, WTF, that's illegal, right? I opened a blank Google Doc instead of answering and typed exactly what Melissa had said, word for word, with the date and time. My heart pounded, but my brain was very, very clear. This was wrong. Not just morally wrong, legally wrong. That night, I sat at my small kitchen table with my MacBook and a glass of red wine I couldn't taste. Ethan was at jujitsu. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the fridge and the traffic outside on Colfax. I opened a new tab and typed, can your job deny promotion because you're a woman? Pages of results popped up. Title 7 of the Civil Rights Act. EEOC. Sex discrimination. Retaliation for complaining about discrimination. Every article said the same thing. You can't make job decisions based on gender or pregnancy or potential pregnancy. And yet Melissa had done exactly that. Out loud. In a meeting, as HR. I read until my eyes blurred. Words like protected class and adverse employment action and pretext swirled together. Then I stumbled onto the U.S. Department of Labor website. I clicked around, reading about wage protections, family and medical leave, retaliation, how they sometimes partner with state agencies and the EEOC. I landed on a page about retaliation for asserting rights and felt a cold, electric calm settle over me. They were so sure I wouldn't do anything. They were banking on me being just another woman who swallowed it and kept showing up. They'd picked the wrong woman. I opened my notes app on my phone and started a new note titled, Inside Out, Discrimination, Evidence. I typed out everything I could remember. The comment about not investing in me because I might get pregnant, the girls get emotional joke in last month's meeting, the times Gary called me sweetheart in front of vendors, the influencer idea he dismissed from me and praised from Brad, the guys' lunch club. I scrolled back through Slack messages and took screenshots. Gary at 10:43 p.m. Can you just finish this tonight? You're so much more detail-oriented than Brad. It's a girl thing, LOL. Brad. Claire's basically our team mom keeps us all in line. I scrolled through emails. Claire, can you take the notes in the meeting? Claire, can you coordinate snacks for the offsite? Claire, Can you make sure Brad doesn't forget his talking points? Death by 1,000 favors. My mom called while I was in the middle of copying a particularly gross Slack thread into the doc. Hi, honey, she chirped. How'd your review go? Did you get the promotion? I stared at the screen. No, I said. They said I don't deserve it because I'm a woman. Literally. Silence. What? She said finally. I told her everything. The sentence, the tone, Gary sitting there. Oh, honey, she whispered. I'm so sorry. That's awful. Yeah. Well, she said, recovering. You know how it is? Men have always had it easier. You just have to work twice as hard. Prove them wrong. I have worked twice as hard. I snapped. I'm exhausted. She sighed. I know. But maybe if you keep your head down, in a year, no, I said out loud, surprising both of us. I'm done keeping my head down. There was a long pause. You're scaring me, she said softly. You need that job, Claire. Your loans, the wedding. I know, I said, but I also need to be able to look at myself in the mirror. After we hung up, I stared at my laptop screen for a long time. Then I opened a new tab and typed, How to file Complaint Department of Labor, Colorado. Chat Day 6. The plan, document, protect, strike. I didn't just wake up the next morning and storm into HR screaming, I'm calling the Department of Labor. Oldest daughters don't do that. We make plans. Step 1, document everything. I bought a little moleskin notebook at Target on my lunch break and started carrying it everywhere. Every time Gary said something, every time Brad stole credit, every time Melissa brushed off a concern, I wrote it down. Not just the big stuff, the small stuff too. 3:14, Gary told me, You're so good at the nurturing stuff, Claire. That's why you're great at supporting Brad. In front of VP. 3:20, Melissa said pregnancies are disruptive to business while we were in the kitchen. 2 witnesses, Nina and Jess. I transferred everything to a locked Google Doc on my personal Gmail at home. Not work laptop, not company accounts. I'd read enough to know that if this went nuclear, they could access my work stuff. Step 2, find allies, quietly. I started with Nina. We were in the break room, waiting for our lunches to finish microwaving. Mine was Tupperware pasta. Hers was leftover tikka masala from Trader Joe's. So, I said casually, has Gary ever said anything to you about women and promotions? She glanced at the door, then at me. All the time, she muttered. Why? I told her about my review, carefully editing out the part where I was planning an official complaint for now. Her eyes widened. Melissa said that? In those words? Claire, that's insane. Would you be willing to write a statement if I needed it? I asked. She hesitated, then nodded. If it's not just you? If this is a bigger thing. Oh, it was bigger. I talked to Jess after work at a Starbucks down the street. She showed up in an oversized hoodie, blue hair in a messy bun, eyes rimmed with eyeliner and exhaustion. I've heard Gary say messed up stuff about women in leadership so many times, she said, stirring her iced latte. Remember when he said, women get weird after 35, hormones and all? And Melissa laughed? I did remember. I'd written it down. What if I told you I was thinking about filing a complaint? I asked. With HR? She snorted. They're the problem. With the Department of Labor, I said. Her straw froze mid-sip. You can do that, she whispered. I can file a complaint about discriminatory practices, I said. And retaliation. I've been reading. She sat back, eyes huge. Holy shit. Claire, that's big. I know. Won't they fire you? They're not legally supposed to, I said. Retaliation is illegal. It's all over the Doll website. Doesn't mean they won't try, but I'm sick of being scared. She exhaled slowly. If you do it, I'll back you up. Anonymous if possible. But I'll tell them what I've heard. Step 3, get outside advice. I couldn't afford some fancy downtown attorney at $400 an hour, but I could afford a free consultation. I found a local employment lawyer on Google with good reviews. Helped me with a discrimination case, very direct, very honest, and booked a call. We spoke on my lunch break while I sat in my car, parked behind the building, staring at the Chipotle across the street. After I told her the basics, she whistled. They said it in those words? She asked. And you wrote it down right after? Yes, I said. And I have a history of similar behavior documented. Emails, Slack messages, witnesses. And HR was the one who said it. Yes. She paused. I could almost hear her smiling. Claire, she said, I can't promise you a movie ending, but that's very strong evidence. You have a couple of options. You can file with the EEOC, they do discrimination, and or your state civil rights agency. Department of Labor handles some related stuff, like retaliation for asserting wage or leave rights. Sometimes these agencies coordinate. The important thing is, don't complain internally and then wait. These people already showed you who they are. I don't have a ton of money, I said. I get it, she replied. We can talk contingency if it becomes a lawsuit. For now, I actually think your best first move is to file an external complaint. EEOC, state, and yes, you can absolutely call the Department of Labor hotline to ask about your rights and document that you reached out. Then, when you tell HR you've contacted them, watch how fast they panic. Fear flickered in my chest. Won't that make my life hell at work? For a while, she said bluntly. But you're already in hell, aren't you? I thought about the late-night slacks, the stolen credit, the sentence in the conference room. Yes, I said, I am. Then at least make them pay for it, she said. Step 4, pull the trigger. That night, after Ethan went to bed, I sat in the living room with my laptop. I dialed the number on the Department of Labor website. It felt surreal, like I was prank calling the government. A calm woman's voice answered. U.S. Department of Labor, how can I help you? My throat went dry. Hi, I think my employer is discriminating against me because I'm a woman. She asked me what state I was in, what industry I worked in, and what had happened. When I recited Melissa's sentence, word for word, there was a pause. Did you document that? She asked. Yes, I said, right after it happened. And I have a history of similar comments. Okay, she said, what you're describing mostly falls under Title VII, enforced by the EEOC, but retaliation for asserting your rights can involve us as well, especially if it touches wages or leave. I'm going to give you contact information for our regional office and the EEOC's Denver office. You should file a complaint with them, and I'm going to note that you called today and what you reported. I wrote everything down. My hand shook, but I felt weirdly powerful. I wasn't just venting anymore. I was creating a trail. I filed the EEOC charge online. It took an hour. I attached my notes, redacted screenshots, everything I had. I hit submit. When the confirmation email dinged, I sat back and stared at the ceiling. There was no going back. 7. Lighting the match. I didn't drop the bomb immediately. First, I waited for the EEOC confirmation letter in my mailbox, actual snail mail, and for the email from the Department of Labor Regional Office acknowledging my inquiry. When I had both in hand, printed and tucked into a folder, I scheduled a meeting with Melissa. Subject line, follow-up re-performance review. Her assistant put it on the calendar for Tuesday at 10 a.m. That morning, I dressed differently. Instead of my usual soft sweater and black jeans, I wore a navy blazer, a white blouse, and the pair of black slacks I usually reserve for presentations. I did my eyeliner sharp, tied my hair back, and looked myself in the bathroom mirror at work. You are not crazy, I told my reflection. You are not overreacting. They were wrong. I knocked on Melissa's office door. Come in, she called, without looking up from her screen. She glanced up when I sat down and smiled her polite smile. What can I do for you, Claire? I placed my folder on the desk but didn't open it yet. I wanted to circle back on some of the language used in my performance review, I said. Specifically the part where you said, I don't deserve a promotion because I'm a woman at this stage of my life. Her smile vanished. I didn't say that, she snapped. You're twisting. You did, I said calmly, and I wrote it down, word for word, right after our meeting. I also have 2 coworkers who've heard you and Gary make similar comments about women in promotions. Her face flushed. Now hold on. I gave you both the chance to fix this quietly, I continued, to look at my performance, at the actual criteria, and make this right. Instead, Gary told me last week not to get emotional. And you told Nina that pregnant employees are disruptive. Her mouth fell open. Nina told you that? So here's where things stand, I said, opening the folder. I've already filed a discrimination charge with the EEOC. I've already contacted the Department of Labor about potential retaliation. I have copies of emails, Slack messages, my notes, and a list of witnesses. I'm here as a courtesy to inform you. She stared at the papers like they were on fire. You contacted the Department of Labor? She repeated, voice suddenly dry. Yes, I said. Last week. They advised me of my rights. They're aware of what was said. And if this company decides to retaliate against me for asserting those rights, by cutting my hours, changing my duties, or terminating me, that will be part of the complaint. Her hands trembled as she adjusted her cardigan. Claire, she said slowly, this is extreme. We're a family here. You don't want to escalate things like this. It could ruin your future. No one wants to hire a troublemaker. There it was, the threat. I leaned forward. You told me I don't deserve a promotion because I'm a woman, I said, voice level. You implied I was a bad investment because I might get pregnant. That wasn't just insulting. It was illegal. Now you can either work with me to resolve this, or you can keep underestimating me. But if you choose the second option, you should know something. What? She whispered. I'm not the only one, I said. You and Gary didn't just do this to me, and I'm not the only one talking to the Department of Labor. She paled. I stood up. I'll wait to hear from the company's counsel, I said. Going forward, I'd prefer all communication about my performance and my complaint to be in writing. Then I walked out of her office, past the posters about inclusion and respect on the hallway wall, and back to my desk. My Slack pinged. Jess, you okay? Melissa looks like she saw a ghost. I smiled, for real this time. I introduced her to the Department of Labor, LMAO, what stay tuned. Quash. 8. When the company realizes you're not bluffing. Things moved fast after that. 2 days later, everyone in the marketing team received an email. Mandatory meeting, 3 p.m. Conference room Breckenridge attendance required. Marketing team, plus HR plus legal. The word made my stomach flip. At 2:58 p.m., I walked into Breckenridge with my notebook and sat down. Nina and Jess flanked me like quiet bodyguards. Brad strolled in, confused, chewing gum. Gary entered with a forced smile, followed by Melissa, looking like she hadn't slept, and a man in a navy suit I'd never seen before. He introduced himself. I'm David Lang, outside counsel for Inside Out Foods, he said. I've been asked to facilitate a conversation regarding some recent concerns raised about the marketing department. He didn't look at me when he said concerns, but everyone else did. Gary cleared his throat. Let's just get this over with. David opened a folder. First, I want to acknowledge, he said, that an employee has filed a discrimination charge with the EEOC and has contacted the Department of Labor regarding alleged sex-based discrimination and retaliation in this department. Brad's gum almost fell out of his mouth. Jess typed furiously in the notes app on her phone. David continued. I'm here to gather information and to advise the company on its obligations. This meeting is being documented. He pressed a button on a small recorder on the table. I almost laughed. They were recording now. Shame no one thought to record when HR said I didn't deserve a promotion because I was a woman. David looked at me. Finally. Claire, I understand you believe you were denied a promotion because of your gender, he said. Can you explain in your own words what happened? I took a breath. This was it. In my performance review, I said, Melissa told me I don't deserve a promotion because I'm a woman at this stage of my life. She referenced my age, my engagement, and implied that I'd probably have children soon, making me a bad investment. Gary was present. He didn't object. He's made similar comments about women and leadership before. I've been doing manager-level work for over a year, while Brad receives credit and opportunities I don't, despite similar or weaker performance. David looked at Melissa. Is that accurate? He asked. Her lips pressed into a thin line. I would never say someone doesn't deserve a promotion because they're a woman, she replied. I was talking about general trends. Work-life balance. Claire is emotional. I was trying to protect her from burnout. I almost choked. Emotional? I repeated. You literally said men my age are a better investment. You said men are more reliable. Nina spoke up, voice quiet but steady. I've heard similar things, she said. Gary told me women age out of leadership faster because of family stuff. Gary's head snapped toward her. That was a joke. It wasn't funny, she said. Jess chimed in. Gary told us last month that promoting another woman to manager would be complicated because they'd end up on maternity leave together. Melissa laughed. Melissa's eyes widened. That was taken out of context. David held up a hand. This is why we're here, to understand context. He flipped through some stapled papers. I've also reviewed some Slack messages and emails, he said. For example, he read one of Gary's late-night messages out loud. Can you just finish this tonight? You're so much more detail-oriented than Brad. It's a girl thing, LOL. And this one, David continued, we're not putting another woman in a manager role until we get past Q4. Too risky PTO-wise. We need stability, Gary sputtered. Those were informal. Jokes between company-owned communications are not jokes in the eyes of regulators, Mr. Thompson, David said sharply, especially when they involve protected classes. He turned back to me. Claire, have you experienced any changes to your workload, schedule, or treatment since raising these concerns? He asked. I thought of the last 3 days. Gary suddenly excluding me from emails I should have been on. Melissa forgetting to invite me to a vendor call. Brad acting weirdly cold, like I'd betrayed some bro code. Nothing major yet, I said, but I expect there will be. That's why I contacted the Department of Labor about potential retaliation. I want it on record. David nodded slowly. For the record, he said, speaking into the recorder, the company has been notified that any adverse action against Miss Morgan from this point forward may be construed as retaliation in light of her protected activity. Gary shifted in his seat. So what now? He demanded. We just let her trash our reputations. David looked at him coolly. What happens next, he said, is that we take this very seriously. We cooperate fully with the EEOC and the Department of Labor. We review our promotion practices, our communications, and our leadership training. And we do not, under any circumstances, retaliate against employees who assert their rights. I sat there, heart pounding, watching Gary's world shrink. He'd spent years mocking diversity trainings, dismissing our feedback, calling us girls and emotional. Now there was a man in a suit telling him that I was the one the government was listening to. 9. What consequences? Corporate investigations are not like TV. There was no dramatic scene where the FBI stormed in and hauled Gary away in handcuffs. Instead, there were weeks of interviews with me, with coworkers, with former employees who suddenly had a lot to say. Requests for documents, performance reviews, emails, Slack logs, pay histories, promotion records. Awkward hallway silences, people glancing at me and then quickly looking away. But slowly, things started to shift. First, they pulled Gary off my direct line of supervision. Effective immediately, an email from HR announced, Claire will report directly to VP of Marketing, Sarah Lee, during this review period. Sarah, a woman in her 40s who had been oddly distant before, called me into her office. I'm not allowed to talk about the details, she said. But I want you to know, I'm watching, and I'm not okay with what I've heard. Then, about a month later, another email. Leadership update. Effective April 1st, Gary Thompson is no longer with Inside Out Foods. We thank him for his contributions and wish him well in his future endeavors. No party, no goodbye card, just gone. Rumor around the office was that he'd been encouraged to resign after legal reviewed his messages and the EEOC investigator started asking pointed questions. Melissa didn't get off scot-free either. She was reassigned out of HR to an individual contributor role in compliance with no direct reports. In HR language, that's a demotion with a side of humiliation. New faces appeared. An outside HR consultant specializing in discrimination prevention. A mandatory training invite in everyone's inbox. Preventing bias and retaliation in the workplace. People rolled their eyes, but they showed up. The Department of Labor and EEOC had that effect. As for me, I had decisions to make. The company's lawyer, David, called me into a meeting with Sarah and a representative from corporate. Claire, he said, as part of resolving this situation, The company is prepared to offer you the marketing manager title, a salary adjustment, and a one-time payment for differential pay you may have lost due to delayed promotion. In exchange, we'd be looking at a settlement agreement regarding the EEOC charge. I looked at the piece of paper he slid across the table. Marketing manager, $18,000 raise, back pay, attorney's fees. It felt vindicating, but also not enough. Will you change anything else? I asked quietly. Your policies, your promotion criteria, how you treat other women. We're already in the process of reviewing those, Sarah said. I'm not allowed to say this as your boss, but as a woman, thank you. You lit a fire we should have lit ourselves. I thought about my mom, telling me to keep my head down. I thought about my dad, proud of my office job. I thought about every time Gary called me, the girl on my team. I signed the papers. Pretend, life after the fire. 6 months later, my life looked very different. I was marketing manager, on paper, finally matching the work I'd been doing for years. Making enough money to aggressively pay down my student loans and still afford the occasional Whole Foods treat. Leading my own small team, Nina, now senior analyst, and a new junior hire. Gary was a cautionary tale in hushed kitchen whispers. Did you hear he tried to interview at that other CPG company and they Googled the EEOC filing? Someone said once while pouring coffee. He's toxic now. Melissa kept her head down in compliance, eyes glued to her screen whenever I walked past. The atmosphere in the department changed too. People thought twice before making jokes about maternity leave. The guys' lunch club disappeared. Sarah started taking all of us to lunch once a quarter instead. But here's the thing no one tells you. Even when you win, you don't feel like a hero. Some days I felt like a traitor. I heard whispers. She went nuclear instead of just finding another job. You gotta be careful what you say around Claire. She'll go to the government. Oldest daughter guilt runs deep. I worried I'd made things harder for everyone. Then I'd get an email like this. Subject: thank you. Hi, Claire. You don't really know me. We've only emailed a few times. But I heard about what you did. I'm a new mom, and I was terrified to ask about pumping at work because of stuff I'd heard Gary say. After everything that happened, HR actually sent me information about my rights before I even brought it up. That's because of you. So if you're questioning whether it was worth it, it was. Jenna, sales. Or this Slack from Jess. Just got invited to the golf outing and the leadership offsite. First-time women are included by default. Imagine that you did that. Ethan and I finally got married in a little ceremony in Estes Park, with the Rocky Mountains behind us. At the reception, my dad gave a slightly too long speech, as dads do. This kid, he said, voice thick with emotion, used to stay up late at the kitchen table doing homework, then go to Target at 6 a.m. for her shift. Now she's standing up to companies and government agencies, and I don't even understand half of it. But I know she did the right thing, and I'm damn proud. Later, when the music got loud and the fairy lights blurred, my mom hugged me tight. I was wrong, she whispered into my hair, about keeping your head down. I'm glad you didn't listen to me. I laughed, tears in my eyes. That's a first. 11. What I want. Every woman to know, I'm not telling you this because I want you to call the Department of Labor tomorrow and blow up your career. I'm telling you this because I spent years believing. If I worked harder, they'd notice. If I was nicer, they'd reward me. If I was patient, they'd be fair. I believed that being a good employee meant never making anyone uncomfortable. Here's what I know now. You can be excellent at your job and still be discriminated against. It's not your fault. HR is not your friend. Their job is to protect the company, not you. Some individuals will care. The system does not. You are allowed to call in bigger players, Department of Labor, EEOC, state agencies, you pay taxes. Use the tools you're funding. Documentation is power. Dates, quotes, emails, screenshots. Write it down. Right away. Retaliation is real, but so is protection. Once you assert your rights, certain lines can't be crossed without consequences. Most of all, when someone in power looks you in the eye and says, you don't deserve a promotion because you're a woman, you are not overreacting. You are not too emotional. You are witnessing something unlawful. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep their company warm. If I could go back to that conference room, the one with the crooked inspirational poster and the stale coffee, and sit next to my past self as Melissa said those words, I'd put my hand on her arm and say, "You are not crazy. They are. And in a few months, they'll be explaining themselves to the Department of Labor while you're negotiating your promotion." So, no, Melissa, I didn't ruin my future. You handed me my future when you said the quiet part out loud. I just made sure the right people heard it.